Okay, so we're looking at Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley today. Now, Ozymandias is a very, very famous poem. Shelley is a romantic poet. Do any of you guys know his famous wife's name? Frankenstein, Mary Shelley? Yeah? They had a very interesting relationship, and he was a little bit of a cad. He had a tendency to run off with young women whilst he was married to other women. So the story of Ozymandias. First of all, the name of the poem Ozymandias. Can anybody remember what it means from last lesson? Yep. Sorry? He was a pharaoh. He was Ramesses II. He was a pharaoh. Can anybody remember what his name actually means in Greek, from the Greek? Yes? Yeah. Ozy means heir, and Mandius means ruler. So, pretty much very, very powerful ruler. Now, this statue that this poem is about is actually real. It does exist. You can go to Egypt and see it. But if we first of all, before we start looking at the poem as lines individually, if we have a look at the structure first of all, and the things that we notice, the first thing that you should see is that it is one long stanza. So, one long stanza of how many lines? Can anybody tell me quickly? How many lines is it quickly? 14. What does that suggest? What sort of poem has 14 lines? A sonnet. Good. So we need to quickly check that. If we think it's a sonnet, we need to check the rhythm. And if we look, I met a traveller from an antique land. Yes, it is in iambic pentameter. Metre of poetry that has 5 pairs of poetic iambs in it, with the second syllable of each one stressed. So, I met a traveller from a antique land. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. It sounds like a heartbeat. And that's the easiest way to recognise it. Okay? And if we have a look through, we can see we've got some regular rhyme. Not the usual A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G of a sonnet. But we've got land, sand, command, then you've got read, fed, appear, despair, decay, away. So we do have some regular rhyme. And we do have to consider what those things might mean, because when we read the poem and we look at the fact that obviously Ozymandias is supposed to be this quite strict ruler and very, very strong, the idea of this quite strict structure might reflect that kind of strong, angry, quite unpleasant person in power. So if we read the poem through, I met a traveller from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So we start with this kind of almost storytelling going on. It kind of removes Shelley from the poem itself. It's distant. So it removes the narrator from the tale. Sort of pushes it further back. So when we think about that word antique, what does antique mean? Old. Okay, ancient. So that use of the word antique, ancient, already says this is so long ago that it's out of living memory. And now it's even further pushed back by the fact that it's not the narrator that's seen this thing. It's actually a traveller, okay? Somebody who's, explorer. So this removes it even further, okay? Who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Any idea what vast means? Yeah, it means huge, okay? So vast means huge. What about trunkless? Any ideas? When you think of the human body and you think of it, if you imagined it to be a tree, what would the trunk of your body be, do you think? It's actually slightly further up because it says trunkless legs. Okay? So the legs are still there, the trunk is missing, so it's the torso. So all that's there are these 2 legs. So it's missing its torso, okay? So basically the bulk of the statue has disappeared. Legs of stone stand in the desert. Okay. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. Okay, so we've got that nice little ellipsis there. Kind of changes what we're talking about. So it moves us from the legs to the rest of the statue. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. First of all, what's a visage? Yep, a face, good. Okay, and a shattered, what does shattered mean? What does shattered mean? Is something shattered, Ollie? It's broken, but is it just sort of broken in 2? Yeah, it's utterly destroyed. Can't see any of it. It's absolutely wrecked. And it's half sunk. It's virtually hard, it's impossible to see. Okay? So if it's sunk in the sand, what does that suggest about how long it's been there for? Yeah, okay. It's almost not there anymore. It's almost disappeared. So we've got this idea of time. Whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. Okay, actually, let's go back a little bit for a second. Legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. What sound are we hearing there a lot of? S's, yeah. We've got lots of S's. We've got quite a bit of sibilance there. What could that sibilance... We've even got a sneer of cold command there. What could that sibilance be representing? The sibilance tends to be kind of a sort of sound. What might that be? Think about where this is set. Like the sand. Yeah, it's the sand moving. Kind of gives it this kind of desolate feeling. Okay? That whole idea of the fact there's nothing there and all you can hear is the sand moving. Okay, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. Okay, so first of all, what's a sneer? Anybody? Can anybody make a sneer at me? Any ideas? Yeah, that's it. It's that look you get on your face when there's a nasty smell under your nose, that kind of wrinkled. Yeah, I don't do it very well. But it's a really, really negative facial expression. Okay? Sneer of cold command. Okay, so let's have a look at that cold command there. Okay, so he's wrinkled his lip, which is pretty negative, and then we've got cold command. What would that suggest about him? What does that suggest about him? Yeah. Yeah. When he gives commands, there's no emotion. But we've got that word sneer. If you're sneering at somebody, what do you think of them? You're higher than them. You're disgusted by them. So that there's a lack of emotion because there's a lack of connection between him and those beneath him. So he considers everyone beneath him. He almost doesn't recognise the humanity of anyone except himself. Tell that it's Sculptor, well those passions read. So we've moved from the traveller to the statue and the king that was the statue, and now we're on to the Sculptor. Well those passions read. Okay, so what is a sculptor first of all? Anyone? What does a sculptor do? Yeah. A sculptor is the artist that made the statue. Well, those passions read. Now, when we often talk about the word passion, we don't always mean somebody who's utterly in love with someone. A passion can be something that's like an extreme emotion. Okay? So, the sculptor, the artist, could read on his face when he was sculpting him how cruel he was. Almost to the fact that he enjoyed being cruel. So the sculptor could read basically how horrible he was. Tell that it's Sculptor, well those passions read which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. So, although there's not much of the statue left, what is left is this horrible, negative face. Okay? And that idea that now he's no longer alive, the only thing that remains of him is this negative view. Sorry, I'm going to have to put my hand over for a second, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to write it. So his negativity is the only thing that remains, stamped on these lifeless things. Now that's stamped there. What do you think that means? What could stamped mean? There's two ways it could be read. One could be left a mark, as in, putting a stamp on it. But what's the other thing it could be? Yeah, people who disobeyed him, stamping your foot, stamping feet. So that could suggest that perhaps the artist wasn't the most loyal of people. Sorry about all of my arrows, they go everywhere. So, now this is actually where you start to get higher marks when you look at alternative meanings of things, okay? Because there are two meanings there, and if you're looking at alternative interpretations, that's where you're going to actually start to move yourself forward. So yes, the sculptor has stamped on these lifeless things his work, but what he's also done is shown us this impression of this ruler that's really not very nice at all. And the fact that he's still that we're told that it's lifeless as well. I'm just going to bring one further down here. Okay, so lifeless. What's that reminding us as readers? What's that reminding us of as readers? Where is Ozymandias now? He dead. Yeah? He's dead, Jim. So we've got this idea of the fact that despite the fact that he was this powerful ruler, he still died like everybody else. Does anybody know anything about the way the Egyptians considered their pharaohs? Yeah, considered them to be gods. So the fact that he's dead shows that he is very much human. He's not godlike. He did die. And then we've got this next line, which has got another double meaning in it. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. Now, let's have a look at that word mocked. First of all, what does mocked mean? Yeah, so I'm going to bring an arrow down here for this one. So, mocked, again, has two meanings. One is make fun of. So, what's the hand that mocked his passions? Whose hand is that? Do you reckon? If it's someone who's mocking, so taking the mickey out of him, making fun of him, okay, whose hand is going to be the one that's made this? Yep. Yeah, the sculptor. But the second thing which makes it even more likely to be the sculptor is that, does anybody know an alternative meaning for mock? If you mock up something, it means, yes? Yeah, to make a likeness of something. So, for example, when you sit mock exams, it's because it's a likeness of your real exam. That's what the word means. So it means to make a likeness of. So that really gives you that idea that this sculptor has made a likeness of this king, but what they've actually done is, rather than making a likeness that he wanted, they've made a likeness that shows the heart that fed. Remember, this person's got very little emotion. We've got that metaphor of cold command here. So the heart that fed is his, effectively, he's mocking him for his bad temper and his being a horrible ruler. Okay. And then we have this line here, and on the pedestal these words appear. Now, do any of you guys know anything about sonnet structure? Because there's one more part of a Petrarchan sonnet that's used in here. Have any of you ever heard the term Volta? Yeah? What's Volta? Anybody remember what it means? Yeah? The turning point in the poem. And that's what this is. Line 9 is the Volta. And I can spell it, I just can't write apparently today. So, I'm just going to put a V in pink there so you can see it. And on the pedestal, these words appear. So we've gone back to talking about the broken statue now. So we've gone from talking about the traveller, then into a little bit about the sculpture and how it's basically wrecked. And then we go to the artist, and now we're going back to that point. And this is where we get what the king, what the pharaoh wants us to know about him. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Okay? It's very big. It's very proud. What does it smack of? Whenever somebody says, how awesome am I, what does that normally suggest is going to happen? Sorry? Something bad, yeah, karma. Okay, it's really arrogant. King of Kings. Now that's another interesting one. When we look at the term King of Kings, where do we hear the term King of Kings? The Bible, talking about God. So yet again, we've got this idea of the fact that he thinks he feels like he's a god. Okay? Another thing there Does anybody know the title of somebody who might be the king that goes over the top of kings, or possibly, I don't know, the queen that reigns over many, many, many different countries?
Is it something like supreme leader?
No. An empire, an emperor, or an empress. Queen Victoria was Empress of the British Empire. She never even went to half the countries that were part of it. But this is written at around about that time. And we know that Shelley hates monarchy, okay? We know that the British Empire was something he felt very strongly against. I mean, flippin' heck, he agreed with the French Revolution, okay? He was all up for the destruction of monarchy. So when he says King of Kings, he says, my name is Ozymandias, I'm an emperor, okay? Okay, look on my works, ye mighty, and despair, meaning that he is bigger than everybody else. Mighty. And look at those capitalisation, my works, ye mighty, and despair. So everybody needs to be afraid of him, okay, as far as he is concerned. And then that line that comes directly after it, nothing beside remains. Okay? What's that? What technique's being used there? Well, we've got this whole idea of, look at it all, isn't it amazing? And there's absolutely jack all there. What is that? Juxtaposition, fantastic. Juxtaposition of those two ideas. We've got this idea of, there's literally, it's all on its own. It's really interesting actually that nothing beside remains is actually in the middle of a line, but because of that full stop there, just that little full stop there, that really shows that that needs to be isolated. And then we've got round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. What does colossal mean? Yeah, so we've got another idea of being huge. And the enjambment there, round the decay of that colossal wreck, it's that whole idea of, sorry, I'm going to have, these arrows are getting insane, but that enjambment really sort of emphasises that nothing beside remains, that really short sentence. Really makes it seem like it needs to be out there separately. And then we've got colossal wreck. Now look how we've got capitalisation of work and mighty, and now we've got the capitalisation of wreck. It's that whole idea of the only thing that's left of him is this destroyed thing, but we're still capitalising it because it's important, because he felt he was important. And then we've got boundless and bare. Those lovely plosives there. As far as the eye can see, boundless. There's nothing there. Without boundary. The lone and level sands stretch far away. And again, we've got that kind of hushing at the end. Sand again. Going back to that idea that there's nothing there. I've probably spelt sibilance two different ways on this. No, I haven't actually. I think that might be accurate for once. Okay, so the lone and level sands stretch far away. So, ultimately, what's happened to Ozymandias? Okay. What's happened to Ozymandias, ultimately? He's been forgotten. What's destroyed him? Nature and his arrogance, and why is his visage sinking into the sand? What's causing that? Time. He has been forgotten because there is nothing left anymore. He is so far back in time that nobody remembers him. Okay? Time has led to him being forgotten. Nature as well. Time and nature have destroyed everything. He built. And all he's remembered for now, is this kind of destroyed, ugly statue out in the desert. I think this is a fantastic poem. It's one of my absolute favourites in the anthology. I think it's so powerful, the idea that someone as powerful as Ozymandias is going to eventually be washed away. And as we said, when we consider the idea of Shelley and the French Revolution, and we consider the idea of Shelley's opinions on monarchy, you could argue that this is a warning to people who have too much power, that don't think you're going to be around forever. Because guess what? The British Empire was destroyed in the same way as the Egyptian Empire was destroyed. They don't exist anymore. And it's that kind of repetition of what happened to Egypt, Shelley feels will eventually happen to the monarchies of his time. And the French Revolution is proof of that. So that warning really comes through. And this works very well with poems like London when it comes to comparison, because they're both talking about this kind of rotting and corrupt power that effectively destroys itself. Okay, thank you very much.